This is our 7th reflection in our Table Talk series, looking at Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. The title of this section of Mark is Jesus Calms a Storm. So our Table Talk series has been focusing on these moments in Jesus' life and the disciples' lives as we consider how this beautiful message of Jesus fits into our world and our lives. The disciples have been encouraged by Jesus to go into a boat, and as they're in the boat, they're crossing over the lake, and it says that a storm arises up and a windstorm comes and blows so much that it scares them. It says that they were filled with fear and that they were actually to the place where they thought they were going to die. The storms of life. Before we get into maybe just some specifics about this, I got thinking about storms in our own lives. I mean, we maybe not are in a boat like this with Jesus sound asleep at the back on cushions, but there are times where we go through these incredible storms. And we sometimes feel like we're going to capsize. And even the thought of that for us brings a sense of fear, like this future reality of something going bad or going wrong, and we begin to worry or we get anxious, or we even look back at seasons in our lives where maybe there was a storm or two, and sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's relational. And I was thinking about this as I was preparing and putting some thoughts together for us in our reflection of this section of Mark. And I grew up most of my life without a dad. I remember being 11 years old and someone sitting me down telling me that my dad wasn't coming home from the hospital, and he had passed away, and he was 36 years old, died of cancer. And at the moment I knew that he was no longer going to be in our lives, and as an 11-year-old boy you kind of don't put it all together completely. But then as I became a teenager, I started recognizing there was things about that became a reality, like watching friends play with their dads and playing catch or going fishing or camping, and I started feeling that sense of like, really? Like, was this something that I needed to walk through, and what was actually going on? And it's interesting because I think about the windstorm arose and the waves were breaking into the boat, so the boat was already filling. But Jesus was asleep on the back on the cushions, and they wake him up. Don't you care about us? Don't you care that we're about to perish? And he wakes up and he rebukes this wind storm, and he says, "Be still. Peace, be still," he says. And then Jesus says, why are you afraid? Where is your faith? I think sometimes in the midst of our storm, we allow our feelings to override our faith. And when that begins to happen, fear and timidity arises. Like this overwhelming sense like it's in our control. But Jesus is directing them to this idea, saying, I'm here. I've not gone anywhere. And as he even speaks these words, be still. And then it says that they ask this question, who then is this? Who then is this? It's the greatest question in all the Gospel of Mark, because it's the question of them beginning to understand more fully who he is. And when they begin to understand more fully of who he is, it says that they were filled with a great fear. And that fear was not this fear of being afraid or scared like the wind had created. It was a different kind of fear. It was a sense of awe and wonder as to who he is. See, I don't know what storm you're going through right now. And maybe you're in the middle of one, or maybe you're entering into one. And as you take some time to reflect, I just want you to realize that our faith is not based on our feelings. Our faith is based on the promise of God's presence and the reality of him being there with us as we walk through it. He may not remove it like he did necessarily here, but he will walk through us and give us peace in the midst of the storm. I know that was for my own life, and it continues to be for my own life as I go through different storms. in this past season of all of our lives, we felt it more real, and it's become more relevant for us. So my hope is that as you take this time to read this section and reflect on it, that you will find the peace in the midst of the storm that Jesus can give, and that you will live with a sense of awe as to how he continues to meet you right where you are in the midst of your storm.